Good evening and welcome to the Monday, October 9th, 2023 open session meeting of the Kent County Public Schools Board of Education. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda for this evening. The administration is recommending approval. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Well, two of us will second it.
One can only second, so.
We'll get
Take
to
it, Aretha.
Okay. Ms. Dorsey has the second. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. The agenda is approved for this evening. The next item on the agenda is moving to closed session. The Kent County Public Schools Board of Education members, this board, Dr. Karen Couch, the superintendent, Dan Hutchin, supervisor of human resources, Adam Constas, legal counsel, and Gail Manley, executive assistant to the superintendent, move to closed session under General Provisions Article 3-305B. Number one, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, and any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. The next one is number 8, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The reason to go into closed session for these topics, 3-305B1, is that the topic is applicants for new hires, resignations, volunteers, transfers, extra pay, extra duty, and any other personnel matters. The reason for the closed session is that public discussion of applicants and employee names and personal information could discourage people from working for the board and contain sensitive personal and biographical information. Personnel information is protected from disclosure under the MPIA. For 3-305B8, the topic, as I mentioned, is to consult with legal counsel and our consultants to obtain updates and advice regarding pending or potential litigation. The reason for closed session is substance of discussion is protected by attorney-client privilege. The administration is recommending approval to move to closed session to discuss personnel items to be voted on during open session and any other personnel matters. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Mr. Rhodes. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. We will move into closed session and return at approximately 6:30 p.m. Welcome, everyone. We'd like to come back into open session. The date is October 9th, 2023. This is the Kent County Public Schools Board of Education. Before I report on closed session, prior to going into closed session, I announced the agenda for closed session properly. However, on the printed version, actually on the listed version on the website and also the printed version in the back, there was one item missing, which was litigation. So what I'd like to do is ask for a motion to have that added into the agenda.
I'll make a motion to correct the printed agenda to reflect the agenda as announced.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion's by Ms. Sullivan.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Rhodes. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to move into, reporting on closed session. The Kent County Public Schools Board of Education members, this board, Dr. Karen Couch, the superintendent, Dan Hushin, supervisor of human resources, Adam Constas, legal counsel, and Gail Manley, executive assistant to the superintendent, met in closed session under General Provisions Article 3-305B. Section 1 was to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, and other personnel matters that affects one or more specific individuals. The reason for closed session is that public discussion of applicants and employee names and personal information could discourage people from working for the board and contain sensitive, personal, and biographical information. Personnel information is protected from disclosure under the MPIA. Section 8 was to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The reason for a closed session topic is substance of discussion is protected by attorney-client privilege. This session was for information and discussion purposes only. No action was taken. Personnel actions will be voted upon by this board in Section 5F of the Superintendent's Report portion of the agenda for this evening. Moving on to the next item agenda, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Messick, if you could lead us, that'd be great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval for the minutes of September 11, 2023, our open session meeting. The administration is recommending approval of these minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Dorsey has a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Sullivan. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is approving the minutes from the September 23rd, 2023 board retreat. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Dorsey has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McGee has the second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ms. Messick?
Aye.
We have an aye for Ms. Messick, and I did not ask you for the one prior, so I'll record your vote for that as well.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sorry about that. I promise I won't do it again. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public participation. Ms. Gale, do we have any participants for this first session? Okay. We'll move into the superintendent's report. Dr. Couch.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I do have a few things I would like to report, and I will start by providing you with a little bit of good news with regard to the middle school project. Dr. Lever and I have been working with Senator Hershey's staff and also with Delegate Greist, and they believe that in order for us to increase the state share for the construction of a replacement school for Kent County Middle School, they believe we have a better opportunity to pass the bill if we do a pre-file. So we're going to pre-file legislation prior to November the 20th, and they believe that that will give us substantial leverage in getting the bill passed. The good news that I have to report is in speaking with the IAC, which is the agency that approves all of the CIP projects, we are on the radar to have our state share increased. However, they're going through their own internal process, and it's not going to reflect a change until FY '26. So he encouraged us to go ahead and move forward with asking for the change through legislation, but that they would be in support of getting that change earlier rather than later. So that's good news. Now, what the percentage that the IAC is going to reflect the change in FY '26, I don't know what that would be. But based on the fact that all of our schools are CEP, which is the community eligibility provision, meaning that all of our students qualify for free lunch and breakfast. Most of the other, all the other school systems that have CEP, 100% of their schools under CEP, when we did the average of all of those schools would put us at 98% that we would request that the state would pay for the new middle school project. So I'm hopeful that we will get some positive traction on that. Even if right now it's 50-50, so even if we were to get 80, 85, even 90%, that would be amazing for us. The other thing that we noted is that we would be eligible to request money from the Maryland Stadium Authority, which they would serve as our project manager for this particular project. And that comes at considerable savings for us as a school system, well, actually the county, because as you know, when we did all of our other projects at our other schools, some of the renovation, we had to add in the cost for a project manager, just like we did for replacement of the roof at Kent County High School, and the county paid for that. Well, because we qualify for funding through the BTL, and that would be through the Maryland Stadium Authority, we could contract with a project manager for this project at no cost to the county and at no cost to the school system. So that was good news as well. The other thing that's important to note in working with the Stadium Authority is that they could help us with the architecture and engineering well before we procure those services. So we can engage them in helping us put ourselves in a good position to solicit the funding for A&E. So we're kind of getting all the pieces in place with the anticipation that we'll get the funding adjusted through the General Assembly.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So does that mean that we would be obligated, is not the right word, but the selection of who our architect or our engineer would be, that would be taken out of our hands?
No.
Okay.
We can still go out and engage for
Okay.
architectural services, but they would just serve as the project manager, but they could help us through their agency with some of the A&E requirements prior to engaging with the architectural firm.
But the contract ultimately would be up to us?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm also requesting money for refurbishing the Kent County High School tennis courts. As you know, we requested bond funding last year, and our delegation came up fairly empty-handed at the end of the session, and I was told that that was directly attributed to the new governor and, I guess, favoring one party over another. So they're hoping that this year they'll come back with some more funding through the bond allocations. We are requesting $412,000, and that would be to refurbish the 5 courts at Kent County High School. This would be replacement of the fencing, and adding pedestrian entrances so that the community could use the courts as well. And so one of the things that I think is going to position us for getting the funding is because it not only, we only have one high school, so every child in our school system would benefit, but it's also open up to the we would open it up to the community, so it would benefit the community at large. So because of those two things, the delegation feels like we would have a good opportunity to get the funding for that. On Saturday, I attended the NAACP Scholarship Banquet, and the annual banquet is held to raise scholarship funding for local African-American students. This year's speaker was Reverend Horsey of Bryan's United Methodist Church in Graysonville. And I would like to announce that $500 scholarships were awarded to Alicia Wilson, Lazuria Howard, and Jalen Y. So it was really a nice event, and the kids were very excited to get the money. And finally, I just wanted to note that Mr. Porter will be providing an update and a progress report on the blueprint for Maryland's future at the quarterly board meeting that we have scheduled for November the 27th. What I asked Mr. Porter to do, instead of going through the entire presentation again of what's in our report or what's in our plan, just to do a high-level overview of what we implemented by pillar last year, what we're implementing this year, and what's on the radar for next year. So it will be a 15, 20-minute presentation, but I think it will be very beneficial because we've done a lot. We've got a lot on our plates for this year, and I think we can highlight some of the programs and activities that we have in place that kind of sets us apart from some of the other counties. And we will also be presenting an update to the Board of Commissioners on October the 24th at their 10 o'clock meeting. So if you care to attend that, that would conclude my report.
Thank you, Dr. Couch. Okay, we're going to move on to 5B, the KCMS feasibility study.
Right.
Dr. Couch.
Okay, so I am not going to go through this. We have, let's see, we've been on this bandwagon for quite a while in terms of trying to make a determination about the location of the Kent County Middle School Replacement School. We have come full circle in that when we initially talked about, and we started with the community listening sessions, we were just going to replace the school and we were looking at 2 locations. That expanded into 5 options. We narrowed it back down to 2 options, and then it was a matter of where does it make the best sense to build the replacement school. And so there were lots of pros and cons. It was really ambiguous in that, just depended upon how you looked at things, whether, you were in favor of one side over the other. There wasn't a huge, overwhelming pick, if you will, within the community and within our parents as well. And so what we did was we came up with a list of pros and cons. We weighted them by category: academic, students, academic faculty, physical education, social emotional development, community, and other factors such as facility and facility operations, and then just general community perceptions. I gathered a group of 21 employees, teachers, administrators, principals, some parents, and we weighted all of these factors, and then we went through all of the pros and cons for the Wharton site and for the Chestertown site. And we talked about whether the pro made better sense at one location over the other, and sometimes a pro at one location was a con at the other location. So ultimately, I think it helped me sort out kind of through all the minutia and try to really, because this is arguably not only going to be the biggest project for this school system and for the community, but it's going to be a long-lasting decision that all of us are going to have to hang our hat on, and I wanted to make sure we got it right. So once we went through all of the pros and cons, if we go down, let's see. You can see, once we rated everything, I don't know, can you take me down to the very bottom? And we said it wasn't like a basketball score, but if you looked at the rating, once we rated them and we looked at the weighting system, there was an overwhelming support with the pros and cons for the Chestertown location over the Wharton location. And some of the big ideas that came out that were of major concern was the lack of physical education facilities to call their own if we were to build at the Wharton site. Sure, we would have limited use of the fields when it was under construction, but that's short term, and we could certainly try to navigate through that. But the overwhelming con for me was student safety, and the fact that our kids we're going to have fifth graders that are going to have to walk to the Wharton site where there are no sidewalks, and there are some very serious safety concerns. And then finally, if at some point this community grows and we want to add on to the high school and/or replace the high school, which is probably going to be in the future as well, are we going to regret the fact that we took up available real estate for the middle school versus preserving that for a potential new high school or in addition to the high school? So my recommendation, as you know, I have to initially make the recommendation, and it's up to you as a board to vote. I am recommending option 2, which is a replacement middle school at the Chestertown site.
Are there any questions for Dr. Couch? Comments?
I think that we have spent a lot of time talking about this and listening to what the community thinks, and I'm glad that we've spent that time on it, and I think that for me, comparing these weighted scores, it makes a difference. This is going to be a school that is going to be here for 50 years, most likely, and have to be what our students need for the next 50 years or however long. But I want to thank Dr. Couch and everyone that did all this research. So thank you for being so thoughtful in how you approach this. And thank you to all the community members and others who reached out and gave their opinion on what they thought should happen with the middle school.
Dr. Couch, I think you've done a great job. You've done your homework on this one, because I've thought for a long time that the sentiment or the ideas that I heard from people was that it was going to come out here, and you really did the work, the hard work to get all the opinions. And I've heard great things about Mr. Buckle and Mrs. Melvin, by the way, at your school. That's just awesome. I believed all along that new middle schools should be built in Chestertown. We need young families to move here. We need jobs and growth. The Historic District Commission is now reviewing a second application for a boutique hotel at the Old Armory. These two initiatives would possibly bring in over $100 million to the local economy. We need higher paying jobs for our locals. Maybe some of our young graduates will stay here. Just maybe a larger retail business will move into our underutilized mall. One issue that weighs heavy on my mind is the cost of this new school and the cost of Kerwin on our small community. Kent County's wealth factor is $1,811 million. When you divide that by 1,650 students, which the state has done, it should be 1,700. the numbers relative per pupil wealth is 1,097,000. If we had 2,500 students, that relative per pupil wealth would be 724,000, or more in line with the state average, 24 counties, of $656,000. Our board recently attended a MABE annual conference. My take, we as a board need to start now and contact our representatives in Annapolis, which Dr. Couch, you're already doing. Kerwin, excuse me. Okay, so Kerwin, I lost my page here. Kerwin, the blueprint, is a mandate, and in this mandate, if the county does not fund their part of the state could come in and take over our finances, which would hurt everybody. On the other hand, our taxes could go up considerably. If a property tax is now at $1,500, the rate to fund Kerwin Blueprint might go up as much as 5 cents, bringing this figure up to $1,573. However, it is projected that the rates within 6 to 7 years might go up to 50 cents, so that $1,500 figure could go up to $2,230. This, in my opinion, this is unsustainable. As a board member, I do not want the citizens of Kent County to be hoodwinked. This is a real and present problem for everyone. Everyone, I want the best for our children. That is the bottom line, but facts are facts. We need to work together, and we need to talk to the representatives at the state level to help us fund these projects. That's what I say.
Well, Dr. Couch has made a recommendation, and I'll make the motion that we build the new middle school on the current campus in Chestertown. I'd said this last month, and I'll say it again, I'm really happy that we've taken the long time to make the decision. I mean, we've been basically talking about this for over a year, and it's been almost a year since we authorized the feasibility study. I myself am grateful that we've had so much time, because I found myself actually changing my mind. I initially was leaning towards Wharton, but some of the factors that I hadn't considered came out when you did the things with the weighted thing. And one of the things that really stuck with me is what Tyree Johnson said back when we had a listening session in June at the middle school. I grew up here, so it's like, it's all old news. The middle school has always been the middle school. And he said what a big deal it was. It's like a rite of passage when you move from the middle school building in Chestertown to the high school building in Wharton. I don't want our middle school kids to feel like they're kind of in the shadow of the high school before they ever get there. I want them to be able to have their own identity. And I think it's empowering for them to have their own school and not worry about what, Big Brother looking out from them across the parking lot. Also, the thought that, and I think this is one of the reasons we've probably held on to the former Wharton Elementary School property as long as we have. Once we give away that property or develop on that property, that is no longer an option. And maybe there will come a day when we do see more economic development, and we do see young families come in, and we do see our student enrollment grow. And wouldn't it be a wonderful situation if we actually had to build more on our high school to accommodate that? But I feel like building a middle school there might be short-sighted and would be shortchanging us if we have the opportunity 50 years from now, even if it's 50 years from now, to grow. So I'm going to make the motion that we build our new middle school on the current campus in Chestertown.
Okay, we have a motion. I would entertain a second, and then we can open up for additional comments if anyone would like to make some more. So, Ms. McGee has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second by Mr. Rhodes. Any additional comments or questions?
I just want to say that I thank everyone for the hard work in exploring all the options. I also thank Dr. Couch for the wonderful job she's done to try to reach out and research. Also, she has done a lot of work really when it comes to the budget and different things, and even with the funding that we need for this, she's still actively trying to find ways to lessen the local course and, so that we can successfully do this. I also thank all of the people who have come out and showed their concerns. And my concern is that will everyone still support and be concerned after the school is built? Because we don't only need that today, but we also need it to continue in order to be successful, in order for the children to have what they need and have the support of the community to do what needs to be done. And that is the main thing that concerns me, because the school's been there a long time. We're a small county, and really, we should all be working together to be the best that we can be. So one thing this tells me is that we definitely can do it because of all that went into this project and all the people who came forth and, they shared their opinions and their concerns. So I'm just hoping that it continues, because we have so much more that we need to do, even after building this school. That's on the outside, but on the inside that needs to be done, and we need everybody's support to do it.
Yeah, I would just add another comment. I mean, there's a lot of work. Obviously, we spent a long time, and my hat's off to Dr. Couch and everyone who put the work in to do this analysis. But what I would add also is that everyone who had concerns, whether it was citizens or staff or even us, if Dr. Couch is able to go and get legislation filed, show up, come to Annapolis, make the comments, we will be there. I'm asking board members, I'm asking local folks, if we can get 98% of this funded through Annapolis, who knows? But even something more north of 50% is better than 50%. So I'm just going to ask that everyone who has an opinion about keeping it in Chestertown, we can make the vote here. I mean, unless the funding is there and we can find a way to work it out, it's not going to happen. So I'm just asking that that everyone, helps us out with this. So we have a motion, we have a second. If there are no other comments, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor? Oh, Maddie, please, go ahead.
I just want to say that this project was very exciting for me, and it makes me very hopeful for this county that we're growing like this. And I'm very excited to see how this goes, even though I won't be here. I will be updated and continue to watch this project because it's very exciting, and it makes me very happy to see that we will provide the services for our kids.
Great. Thank you, Maddie, appreciate that. Okay, we have the motion, we have the second. If there are no further comments, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. The recommendation for option 2 has been approved. Thank you, everyone.
You need Maddie's vote.
Maddie.
Aye.
Ms. Gale, did you get Maddie's vote? Can you bold that for me in there, please? Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Golden Anchor Award.
Thank you, President Getz, school board members, Dr. Couch. Tonight before you, I have our winner of the October Golden Anchor Award, that goes to any employee who embodies the mission and vision of our school system. This month, we received 14 nominations, and we have selected a winner. And to share some of the nominations that came in, Principal of Galena Elementary School, Miss Yoder, is here to announce our winner.
Michelle Crouch is the essence of a team player. Excuse me. She puts her heart and soul into her job every day and takes pride in her work. Michelle works diligently to provide our students with a clean building that students can be proud to attend. This summer, her commitment, dedication, and the time she invested in Galena Elementary was truly commendable. Michelle assisted with removing items and reorganizing our large storage area. It was hot and a dirty job. Michelle never complained. Instead, she worked with a smile on her face and excitement for the area to be more accessible to staff. This is not all. The staff at Galena participated in several work days this summer, updating our staff lounge, and began painting the areas around the school. And I invite all the board members to come see the updates. It is truly exciting. The staff's plan was to paint the old outdated lockers this summer, but we were running out of time before staff came back to work. Michelle asked if it would be okay if she and her husband came in over the weekends to paint the lockers for us. Michelle spent countless hours of her own time to paint every single locker in our building. This transformation has been truly amazing, and we owe it all to Michelle. So thank you.
Ms. Crouch, please come on up to accept your award.
If you haven't seen the lockers, they look beautiful.
Yeah, just, congratulations, Ms. Crouch.
Awesome.
I know.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is our fiscal year 2023 financial audit report.
Good evening, Dr. Couch, President Getz, members of the board. Tonight, we have with us Ms. Audrey McKenrick from UHY LLP that will be going over our 2023 audited financial statements.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Good evening.
I am going to go through this fairly quickly, but if anybody has any questions, please feel free to jump in and ask. If you'll turn to, I don't know, I'm not sure if you have these in front of you.
Yeah.
But if you'll turn to page 1 of the report.
The communications
Or the financial
financial
statements.
statements, the
Correct.
thick one.
Oh, do you want me to scroll down? I can go. We're fine. So on page 1 of the report, that's the independent auditor's report. I'm going to refer you to the second paragraph under opinions. And this is probably the most important part of this report, where it states, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the Board of Education of Kent County, Maryland, as of June 30th, 2023, and the respective changes in its financial position and, where applicable, cash flows thereof for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. What that means in simple terms is that is a clean opinion. It's the best opinion you can get. We did not find anything that we felt we needed to bring to the attention of the board. On page, I'm going to now turn to the second report, which starts on page 4, which is the report on internal controls over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on an audit of financial statements performed in accordance with government audit standards. And just to summarize in this report, for internal controls and in compliance, we found no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that we need to bring to your attention. So this is a standard report on internal control and compliance. The next section of the report is the management discussion and analysis. And I'm just going to kind of skip through that. That's where management has the ability to kind of put the financial statements or what's presented in these financial statements in more layman's terms other than detailed accounting terms. And then the next section is the financial statement section. So the first statement in this section is the government-wide financial statement. So it's the statement of net position and the statement of activities. These two statements are on a full GAAP basis of accounting. So these financial statements, when you compare to the next set, these statements will include your capital assets, which is primarily your buildings and school buses, along with some equipment. It includes any liabilities you have, any long-term liabilities you have. It includes liabilities for pension and OPEB. That's what is presented in these next two statements. You'll see, just to point out from year to year, the net position at the beginning of the year on page 17 was a deficit of approximately $3 million. And your net position at the end of this year is it's actually positioned, not a deficit, of about $500,000. And the cause of that is essentially related to your capital projects or your school construction fund. You're getting money in, and a lot of that was coming in for, I believe, the Kent County High School roof replacement. So money's coming in for that. On your budgetary basis, you consider those cash expenditures. For GAAP, we actually capitalize that roof, and we will depreciate it out over, I think it's 50 years for a roof. So that's why you're seeing the net position go up, because you're getting revenues, but you're not expending those according to GAAP basis financials. On the next statement is your balance sheet, governmental funds, and these aren't true GAAP statements. These are on a modified accrual basis. So again, this doesn't include fixed assets or liabilities. What this does differently than the statements, the budgetary basis, which we'll get to, is this doesn't treat current year encumbrances as expenditures. Your expenditures for these statements are kind of on a year lag. But again, if we just look at this overall, if I scroll down to page 20, you'll see that your fund balance at the beginning of the year was about $5.3 million versus about $4.3 million at the end of the year. And that was, when we get to those budgetary statements, you'll see that you actually budgeted to have almost I think it was about a $1.6 million decrease in fund balance. So that was anticipated and nothing out of the unusual. Are there any questions on any of the statements so far? No. The next section in the report, so the next section is your fiduciary fund statements, which is the amount you've put aside. This is on page 22 and 23 of the report. This is the funds you've put aside to pay for future OPEB cost, other post-employment benefit cost. And that gets reported in the statement of fiduciary net position, and that's at about $1.4 million at the end of the year. And then we go into the notes to the financial statements. There are no significant changes in these notes from year to year. The numbers change, but no significant changes, and I would be happy to go over any of those if you want me to. If not, I will have you turn to page 54 at the end, which is your budgetary basis statements. And you'll see here, so on this report, you can see you have your original budget, your final budget, and then your actual. And so the original and final budget changed. They went up about $75,000 in both revenue and expenditures during the year. And then in the actual column, you'll see that actual revenues were about $36.8 million versus actual expenditures of about $37.7 million. For a deficiency of revenues were less than expenditures by approximately $869,000. And again, you can see in the budget to the left, you had actually budgeted to be even more of a deficit than you were for the year. You had budgeted for a $1.6 million deficit, and it came in at about $869,000. So always good to spend less than what you anticipated.
Can you explain what was it that made us be like half as much as we thought we were going to be in the hole for?
Yes, and Elisa can jump in, but I think just overall in general expenditures, I'm not sure if there's any particular
Okay.
category.
Salaries that we have savings on, and then at year end, we reconcile our balance sheet accounts when it comes to things like our EPO healthcare. That also causes us, we generate savings through that, as
well as we have grants. So at the end of the fiscal year, we recoup whatever benefits that are for employees being fully funded or partially funded from grants, and we recoup it from the local accounts to the so all of that comes into play at the end.
Right, and if you'll recall, right when we were trying to navigate through the current year budget, we anticipated that we would have a savings in this year budget, last year's budget. So we took $700,000 off the top and said, okay, let's cut our budget. So we actually utilized this savings into this current year, just so that we could balance our budget. So you won't see as much, our budget this year is considerably tighter than it was
Okay,
last year.
thank you.
And then the additional pages of required supplementary information are essentially details about OPEB and pension and those types of items. And then again, on page 59 of the report is essentially what will show you what gets you from the GAAP basis financial statements to the budgetary basis financial statements. And you'll see, so the state of Maryland pays a portion of the teacher's pension. That's included in GAAP basis financials, but not in your budgetary basis. There are payments made on your behalf by the county. That doesn't get included. And then just some financing items, and again, encumbrances, which we've mentioned. Are there any questions on the financial statements?
I would just like to thank you. You worked really well with our staff, and I'd like to thank Elisa and her staff for doing an awesome job and making sure that we do what we're supposed to do.
Absolutely, and I would like to thank Elisa, you and your team, who I know, they never know when my head's going to pop up when I'm out with a question, but they're always extremely helpful, and Dr. Couch, you as well, so,
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, this is an action item. So the administration is recommending acceptance of the report presented. We're looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McGee. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we're going to move on to school spotlights.
Okay, so just because I think it's been a while since we've heard from all of our schools, and we've shared some of the best practices and strategies that the schools have implemented in the past few years to improve student proficiency. But I thought it would be nice for the board members to hear from our schools, and so we plan to bring each one of our schools to the board meeting and let them present. And tonight, we're going to hear from Rock Hall Elementary School and Kent County Middle School. So I'll let you guys decide who comes up first. Guess you must have arm wrestled out there, and Kent County Middle School is coming up first.
No, I think it was actually rock, paper, scissors, and Jillian lost, so.
So at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Buckle and Ms. Melvin, who are the administrators at Kent County Middle School this year.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone.
evening.
So we'll try and make this as clear as possible, so hopefully everything will work out. So we're going to cover our professional development initiatives that we're going to do this year at Kent County Middle School. Oh, there we go.
Got it?
Making sure we figured this out.
Okay.
Takes three of us. All right, so what we're going to review tonight are our initiatives. We have a math initiative with the MSD Math Lesson Study. We have an ELA Science Social Studies with a school-wide writing focus, an instructional one through Joyful Inclusion, and then an overall school culture with Polly Bath, which some of you probably know Polly from previous years. So just getting started here, MSD lesson, the Math Lesson Study. So we were fortunate because 2 counties in Maryland were selected to do this study by MSDE. We were given that opportunity at Kent County Middle School to participate in this lesson study cycle. So the blueprint for the Maryland's Future stipulates that teachers should provide time to improve their practice by collaborating with each other. So this lesson study is a research-based activity that will facilitate that teacher collaboration. So through this lesson study, the teachers will work with MSD, work with each other. It's an authentic teacher-led, job-embedded, collaborative professional learning centered around student learning, prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is research and data-driven, enhances the teacher collaboration, elevates the instructional practices, and improves their teacher effectiveness. So we have just started this, and you'll see we're in the early stages of this study. It is all year that we'll be working with MSD. And so the theme of this study, so our teachers, one of the first things they had to do was develop their norms and come up with a theme. And so the theme that they've come up with is to create a classroom environment that fosters collaboration and perseverance and encourages risk-taking while deepening understanding of grade level mathematics and beyond. And so there's a diagram there which is a little tough to read, and we have another slide that'll go over that. And there's 6 stages. Well, there's actually 7 stages. Stage 0 is the stage that we've completed, which was the stage to develop our norms. And if you look on the, I'm going to click to the next slide so we can actually read these. So stage 0, again, developing the norms. We have completed that. Stage 1 we'll be working on starting Wednesday, preparing. Stage 2 is our plan. Stage 3 is to teach and observe. 4 is to debrief. 5 is to reflect and refine. And then at the end, we share our findings. So again, MSD comes to us and they work with our teachers, work with our staff, and so they're kind of hand in hand with us through this whole journey. And again, we're pretty fortunate to be one of the 2 counties, and I believe we're ahead of the other county.
Yes, we are. And we are.
Just a sad.
We're not competitive, but we're ahead.
I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Melvin for this part.
Okay, so our next PD initiative is on writing, school-wide writing, in particular argumentative writing. So after analyzing our MCAP data, we found that our students are struggling with writing across the board. We hope by choosing argumentative writing, students will be engaged in the process of formulating an argument and debating their stance with other students. And then also we thought if students can formulate an argument and support their claim with evidence and details, they will be able to transfer these skills to expository writing as well. So my mind, sadly, is always on testing and how do we increase our MCAP scores and things of that nature. So we thought students are really going to get involved in formulating an argument, arguing with each other, and then putting that argument down in writing. And again, expository writing is heavily assessed on MCAP, so we thought that they could transfer these skills there. So that was our why with choosing argumentative writing. So our how for this is our school-wide SLO will be on argumentative writing. So every student at KCMS will work on multiple argumentative.
Can I interrupt?
Student learning objectives.
I was going to say, when you have acronyms, can you tell us what they are?
Sorry, you
Thanks.
scared me. I didn't know.
No, Dr. Couch answered it, yes. Okay.
Student learning objective, that's an SLO.
Okay.
So our school-wide SLO, which means every staff member would be working towards this goal as a team, will be on argumentative writing. So every student at KCMS will work on multiple argumentative writing pieces throughout the year. And all students will use the same rubric, which is modeled off of the MCAP writing rubric, which will ensure expectations and scoring is consistent. So this is really important because I've seen year to year, students are given a particular rubric in 3rd grade, and then 4th grade, they're given a different rubric. And so it's kind of ensuring consistency across the board, so students get used to the expectations. You know, if they're not exposed to these expectations, then they start MCAP, they're lost. So it's really important to kind of build their capacity early on. So every teacher in the school will be invested in teaching, analyzing, and scoring student writing regardless of their content areas. This will also ensure buy-in from all faculty members. So this initiative isn't just falling on our ELA teachers. It's kind of hard because a lot of times a lot of the brunt of what's happening falls on ELA and math teachers. So this is cool because we will ensure everyone is involved in this process. And then also we will analyze student writing at our PLC meetings, which we've already started to do. And we will determine needs and necessary interventions that need to be implemented through analyzing student writing.
And our PLCs are our
Professional learning communities. Thank you. Sorry, I'm so used to everyone knowing all of these acronyms. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so also we're very fortunate. We were able to work with our special ed department here, Dr. Keene and Dr. Costa-Gooding. to come up with so one of our goals was to try and really figure out how we can do a better job of being collaborative educators, and working with them. They found Joyful Inclusion, which is a program that's designed around increasing collaborative teaching between not just the general education or special education teachers, but both of them working together and truly doing collaborative work, which really works well because we have a math lesson study that is going to be the backbone of this work. So that will kind of be the underarching piece because both general educators are in both of these practices. So some of the things they're learning in Joyful Inclusion will actually be able to be put right into place for the MSD math study. The goal here is for the general education teacher and the special education teachers to truly collaborate, to plan together to increase that student success. And again, a lot of times we have what we call co-teachers, but if you spend any time in a classroom, sometimes the co-teacher is really one lead teacher and the other one's kind of the helper. Where true co-teaching and true collaborative teaching should be a seamless interaction where the students or anyone visiting really doesn't know who the classroom belongs to, because both teachers are equally effective. So the more effective we are at co-planning, we're going to lead to better instruction and meeting all the needs of all students, and not just our special education student or not just our general education, but all the students' needs as they collaboratively plan together and work together. All right, the how of how this is going to work is that every one of our core content teachers and the special education teachers are participating in Joyful Inclusion. So again, we started this program at the beginning of the year. It is a program that is partly through e-course modules, so they will do some of the work on their own. They'll watch some modules, but then they also receive in-person coaching. So we have a coach that will actually come to our building from the company, and they will work with our teachers. And so we've designed this so that that coach will come in during our administrative planning time. So when our general educators and our special educators have their co-planning time, their administrative time to work as a team, they will actually have their coach from Joyful Inclusion with them to be able to help guide the implementation of this whole program. And so this model will really allow them to not just practice and implement those lessons that they learn through the e-course, but also have the guidance of that live instructor, that live coach with them as they go through to make it even more effective and do it with fidelity. All right.
Last but not least, and this kind of encompasses everything we're doing at KCMS, is our PD with Polly Bath. So Polly Bath is a widely recognized behavior expert. She consults and trains administrators, teachers, and paraprofessionals on how to manage and change difficult school behavior. What's really cool too is Polly Bath is actually working with a lot of our elementary schools, so the students that she's working with in elementary, they can transfer these skills once they move to the middle school as well. So she has gained a reputation by teaching educators how to manage behaviors before they interfere with instruction. She also instills a mind shift on how teachers perceive student behaviors. So we actually were really lucky. We had 18 teachers come in over 2 days in the summer, and we worked with Polly Bath on those 2 days, and we really accomplished so much. And it was really neat to hear the discussion with teachers and how we really need a mind shift when it comes to student behaviors and how we handle them. So I just wanted to highlight some of our accomplishments so far with Polly Bath. So we created our KCMS values, which Mr. Buckle will share with you now so you can see those. We created a tiered behavior system. In this tiered behavior system, we also created kind of a tier 2 behavior documentation form, which is online. It's also nice because we can run a report and look at trends and see, what type of behaviors we're seeing more frequently, so we can work with our teams and kind of decide how we can address those more frequent behaviors. We also created school-based committees based on those core values, which you see on your sheet there. And our Students of the Month are also recognized according to the values they display in school. So again, our values really encompass everything we're doing. If we see an unwanted behavior, we talk to our students about what value they're violating. So it's not just like you did something bad, you violated our community. How did you violate our community values, things like that. And kids are actually starting to use the language as well, which is really neat to see. And then looking forward, we will continue to work with Polly Bath throughout the school year. We will also revisit our work with Polly at our monthly professional learning community meetings to ensure we are staying on the right track and moving forward with goals and values we've created. So here are our values, and we just gave those to the board. So do you want us to talk about our values?
I can,
Okay.
sure.
So,
So this is kind of neat because our 18 educators that came in over the summer really developed these. So Ms. Melvin and I were able to kind of step back and allow them to kind of do the work. But what they came up with was, taking KCMS and the value of knowledge, community, mindfulness, and success, and then put it into a term of a student. I seek knowledge, I build a community, I practice mindfulness, and I strive for success. And you can see the examples underneath there. But we have these posted throughout our building, in the classrooms. Teachers refer to them, and it's been a very positive way to address behaviors. And teachers have commented on how they can point up to the poster and say, what value do you think you're, breaking at this time? And kids will, they'll kind of turn right around and be like, I got you, So it's been a great way to, like, a reminder of those little behaviors. And again, Ms. Melvin and I really have tried to work with staff to just say, little things become big things, and this is really how you address those little things and keep everybody, if you're seeking knowledge, if you're being part of a community, being mindful, striving for success, you're not doing the little things, which then turn into big things. So we're really trying to address those, and so far it's I think, worked out nicely.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there we are. So any questions?
No, I would just say that this is fantastic. So I mean, this is just great, the whole process. I just think it's wonderful, and I really appreciate you guys, coming in to kind of walk through that and using that, in the school and having that engagement. That's great stuff.
And
It's awesome.
I have a kid at the middle school, and he is loving it, so
that's good.
thank you. I did have a couple questions. I was wondering if you could sort of describe the process for how a teacher handles an in-class behavior issue, like what the steps are in that process. And then I'm also curious if we're using PBIS anymore. Just
So-
curious about.
Well, I'll let you take the discipline.
Okay, so discipline really, again, we go back to our values. So our teachers, it's kind of difficult too, because to say like a behavior issue, it's kind of,
Sure.
it could be, we've tiered our behaviors. So we have tier 1 behaviors, tier 2 behaviors, tier 3 behaviors. Our teachers know the logical consequences for each tiered behavior. We talk about our students too, like, if you're violating a tier 2 behavior repetitively, are you hindering learning happening? You know what I mean? So our teachers really, it's like a mind shift change. Is it something that you can teach around? If it's not something that you can teach around, then it needs to be addressed. Is it something that's affecting the other students' learning? Yes, then it really needs to be addressed in real time. You know what I mean? So we're also working with our teachers on how to redirect. If you're calling out a student that that's a trigger for them, how can you redirect the student without derailing your entire lesson? So it's really, again, Polybath was like a total mind shift even for me. So it's really neat to work with her, and she's going to continue to work with us because I think we truly need a mind shift for those more difficult behaviors we're seeing and how to handle them. So it's kind of a loaded question there, but so
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a case-by-case basis. And
Okay.
I think, again, too, our big thing and my big thing always in the classroom was developing those relationships. If teachers are able to develop positive relationships with students and truly get to know them, you know how to de-escalate that situation. So that's what we're working towards.
So is the practice then to try to keep the child in the classroom?
Yes.
Again, if it's not affecting other students' learning or
Okay.
the teacher's ability to teach, yes. I've truly believed I taught at the middle school. My first job was teaching at the middle school, and I taught at Garnett. I truly believe once you send a child out of the room, you've kind of lost your power, and then they look at you like you've given up on them, and that's hard for a lot of our students. So we've really kind of pushed that with our teachers, do your best to keep them with you because that's where they're learning.
Yeah.
That's where they're supposed to be.
But again, if it's a behavior that's affecting others or affecting your ability to be able to teach, then
Then
that is
that's-
something they call us for.
Yeah.
But like a good example would be like, let's say a student had their cell phone out, you ask them a few times, they won't put it away, you say, give me the phone, they say no. Sometimes you could just say, okay, we'll deal with this later, move on with the lesson, student's gonna do their thing, but they're not gonna affect anyone else. Where if you escalate it, you're probably gonna end up calling us because now you're in a power struggle.
Yeah.
So it's those like mind shift things of like, sometimes we, as adults, we want that immediate,
Win.
you need to,
Yeah.
give me your phone now, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just using a phone as an example.
Yeah.
But just creating that shift where you're kind of taking that power struggle out. Student thinks they kind of got to win, but really they don't. They know it's coming.
Yeah.
They know they're getting punished.
But your teacher's,
So,
the teacher's still
But
getting.
the teacher gets to move on with the
Yes.
lesson, and the other students
And we
aren't really
address.
affected by a 5 or 10 minute, interruption,
Gotcha.
so.
And then PBIS, are we still,
So.
Yes.
yes?
So-
Okay.
Yeah,
Polybath, again, is
It's
like
a
a big mind
PBS.
Yeah.
shift for us. We're moving away from PBIS.
Okay.
Because we truly want all students to participate in things like this, because that's how we build our community.
I think that's good.
And if a student messes up one time and they're not able to attend the event, that kind of, could ruin their whole month. With that being said, I am pretty strict. So if there was a serious behavior, and Mr.
Right.
Buckles is pretty strict too, if there was a serious behavior, then we need to address that on a case-by-case basis.
But we kind of want students, like, it's not, you don't have to earn everything. It's
Yeah.
like you should have the ability to participate and do things until you make it so that you're not able to participate for whatever reason.
And then we bring that back to, you're violating our community. An event like that is a community-based event. Can you handle something like that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question. Do you think that this will reduce the bullying that has been going on in the school system?
Yes, I think that what we've noticed, and every week is a new week, and every week has gotten a little bit better as the students and the teachers have embraced this. And, we're only in, I don't know, I knew last week what day we were,
It's
but
been a blur.
it's maybe day 20, maybe 30 now, I don't know. We're not that many school days in. And again, every day we see positive changes. We do have to, we have constantly readdressed students on being part of a community means that you are treating everyone the same, you are treating them the way you would want to be treated. So I think, we have a lot of ground to make up from, some of their expectations before. Yeah, and learned behaviors. But I do think we're making a lot of positive headway. Yep.
Okay. And I do agree that addressing the small things will prevent bigger things. Because if we nurture little things, they grow, just like babies. I mean, if I take the baby, nurture it, feed it, et cetera, pat it up, it's going to grow into a big whatever. So, we have to, if you leave it, so if you go ahead and address it or do what needs to be done, cut it off from the beginning. So that's a great thing, and it makes it a whole lot better for everybody that's involved, rather than ignoring it and letting it become something bigger. And the other thing is addressing things, if you have students that just want to repeatedly do things that is against the rules. I mean, you have to show that you have a standard, because if they see one get away, another one's going to get away. I guess when I was in school, they didn't slap us on the wrist or allow us to do things. They had standards, and it just was done. You knew it. I know it's a different generation, so, but we knew what we should and shouldn't do, and because of that, we didn't do it, And it was, I don't know, discipline was something that was active, and I didn't feel like my teacher didn't care about me. I think sometimes discipline made you know they did care,
Sure.
And some people need discipline.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you both. We really
Thank you very
appreciate you coming
much.
out
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Spiro?
So now we have Ms. Spiro from Rock Hall Elementary School.
Hi. Good evening, Dr. Couch, President Getz, and members of the board.
Good evening.
I'm going to take this up because it's planned. Tonight I'm going to speak to you about our academy planning. When I started 2.5 years ago, we looked for a way to really support all students' academic needs in a creative way. And so my leadership team, as well as my staff, all kind of thought about how we wanted this to look. And so we are now into our second full year, but 2.5 years with this model. And so I'll kind of finish with why we think it's an effective implementation. So we call it Academy because we use this, how do I click? Did I just?
Pull the drawer out.
Aha, there's a drawer. Okay. You can tell I've only talked here and not run the show myself. So we use this model, multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS, which really just kind of, to me, means what does a child need? How do we provide that? Whether it is enrichment, acceleration, intervention, whether it's intervention in math and not in reading. So just trying to determine what students need. MTSS is defined by a cycle of screening, database decision-making, in order to, it's designed, it came out through preventing IEP, students from going to IEPs. So looking at that prevention and support for progress monitoring. So we've really tried to encompass this and utilize a system that we feel does just that, but staying true to this model of screening. So if a child is in a math intervention, it's not a life sentence. We give them what they need, we assess whether or not they continue to need it or not, and then we adjust. So I'll start with the first piece, which is kind of hard to read, but our screening. When we first started, we used MAP screening. We now have multiple measures. We have MAP reading fluency for our early kids, which breaks it down into phonological awareness, phonics and word recognition, sentence fluency, comprehension. We have MAP data, MAC data, KRA, and then this year, since we've implemented Orton Gillingham in all of our classrooms for our Tier 1 instruction, we have those screeners, and there are multiple ones. We also this year had MCAP student reports. So we really did take each child's, and Dr. Couch and Ms. Giacomoto have seen, we had each student's individual school report and cross-reference, just to make sure that they didn't have a bad day, right? So does all the data that we can collect on a child tell the same story? That being said, also teachers are a part of all of this so that they can say, well, the child doesn't test well, they can read fine. It's just they get anxiety on a testing day. So then we look at different ways to determine what that child may or may not need. So looking at that is after we dive into the data is what that's when we decide what do we need to offer. So do we need to, last year we really decided that we had a lot of students who were proficient readers but not fluent readers. Fluency interferes with comprehension. So we did a lot of research and had brought back readers theater because it's one of the highly effective practices for reading fluency. So we do a lot of diving and digging. Last year we had some Orton Gillingham trained staff members, even though we hadn't implemented it school-wide. So this year we did some Origo fact fluency training because we realized that that might be a barrier to some of our math achievements. So it really isn't until we look at the data that we decide what do we need to be offering students. And one thing I didn't mention is the offerings are based on your need and not your grade. So when we first started this, our first through third graders, if I'm a third grader who still needs decoding, I'm getting decoding whether there's a first grader with me or not, because that is what we need. So we have first through third academy, 4-5 academy. There's conversations this year of does third belong with 4-5, which means we're growing and our skill deficits aren't as low when a third grader the majority of our third grade no longer need to go as low as first grade. That's a conversation and a celebration. So this year they are first through third, but we are looking that maybe next year it actually needs to be 3-5. So determining the levels of support. There's just a screenshot of how ugly but creative this looks. So I've blacked out student names, but you'll see that no one grouping is the same. It's not the same size, it's not the same offering. You'll see that there's a staff member at the top, what they're offering at the bottom. And if we need 5 of something, we offer 5 small groups of something. And it really becomes, this is our 4-5, a living document. We place students in academy after fall data, and then we revisit it again, and we redo academy planning in about February. So they get a fall block, and then they get a winter, spring, intervention or acceleration. This is also an opportunity for some of our students to get coding, makerspace, if, we are able to provide that. Progress monitoring, many of our interventions utilize progress monitoring. We only offer Academy Monday through Thursday. Friday, they stay with their classroom teacher, and they take reading fluency progress monitoring. Part of that is because the children are rostered to their homeroom teachers, so it's much easier. But it also allows the classroom teacher to still have ownership over the student's growth or lack of growth. So it's not just that they're going with this person, but I know that this is an effective intervention, or I see that they can stay in acceleration, they're still staying where they need to be. So, and then others, like Do the Math, for math, has progress monitoring built in when a student gets to a certain point. So we do make sure that we are progress monitoring with the fidelity of whatever intervention or program the child is in. That being said, our tiered supports. So kind of the way, I don't know what happened to this slide, it's missing the numbers, but so we look at this first tier. These are the children that are on grade level, and we believe that through their tier 1 instruction, through their just general classroom instruction, they will continue to stay on grade level, and that if that's the case, then we consider them. But if a child is above grade level, then that is where we look for an acceleration or enrichment and utilize that GT handbook. Right now we're looking at William and Mary units, which is a high-yield, gifted and talented curriculum. Each school has a GT liaison, so she's kind of spearheading that movement, as well as Makerspace, and Sam Paragoy does our technology in the library with students. And then the second level is just, they're on grade level, but maybe there is an area where they're not as proficient. So we look for writing, as Ms. Melvin mentioned, was one of those areas that held some of our students back from that highest performance level. So really honing in on what do they need. In the spring of last year, a lot of our groups were utilizing rubrics and practice problems and stuff just to prepare them for the state test and what that looks like, because it's not necessarily as frequently embedded in our core programs. And then our tier 3 students are students who are at risk. For first through third, we really prioritize reading. Orton Gillingham is meant to be every day, all day, not all day, but every day, every week, whereas we alternate reading and math weeks every other week. We made the commitment, if a child can't read, they can't read the math assessment, and so they stay in a very intensive reading intervention. If it's not that intense, we do look at what we need to be offering, but we consider those tier 3 to be below grade level, and we don't feel we can bridge their gaps with just our tier 1 instruction. So that's kind of how we consider grouping. I just wanted to highlight some data. When we started collecting this data last year, so this is our accelerated. I don't know what happened, but the first block that you're seeing to the left is our accelerated students. So you'll see we had 40% of our students in an accelerated block. We reduced that to 27, and that was, as Ms. Melvin said, due to writing. We realized we should hone in more on writing. Many students were proficient across the board in all areas, but didn't get to that highest level because of writing scores. So we only have 27, but that is for that reason. I wouldn't say we have less gifted students. We just want to really make sure that they're moving on past Rock Hall Elementary School set for success. And then we had 14% accelerated, and now we have 18 this fall. Tier 2 is our largest groups. These students are on grade level but benefit from targeted support. And then our tier 3, and this is something that I am proud of because these are our students most at risk in need of the most intensive interventions. And in the fall for reading, we had 36 last year. Now we reduced that to 22% that need a tier 3 intervention. Last year in the fall, we did Do the Math for Everyone. The first book is Number Core. We had less in Number Core as they progressed. I didn't collect quite the same data on that, but we have 14% right now for math that need a tier 3. Some of those are getting reading though, with full disclosure. So the strengths that I believe this has brought is that our staff, our teachers and our staff are very data-rich and data-driven. They know how to analyze it, they know how to speak to it, they know where to go to look for it, the frequency, they use it with fidelity. Student support coaches, I don't know that we can, I don't know how we will pull this off, we'll figure it out. But when we lose student support coaches, which were Maryland Lead funded, it will be a challenge because it's afforded us almost double our staff. Maddie has an academy group. If you work in Rock Hall Elementary School, you have an academy group. It doesn't matter how long you're there. And so it's helped us keep those groupings. So our most intensive students are in groups of 4. Our biggest groups are 12, but those are our accelerated groups. So they're in novel studies, and you need a bigger group to have a more dynamic, conversation. Students receive instruction in multiple ways. So if you're not learning it from this person, you get another person who can maybe explain it to you in another way. Also through game-based, multisensory approach for math and reading, and it allows us to kind of group across grade bands so that we can reach back or accelerate. So the benefit is that when a student goes to our student support team, so we've referred them to SST for an academic reason, we've already tracked all of this, because typically a teacher will say, I'm concerned about John, and then we can go back and say, well, what has John been receiving in terms of interventions? Most of the time you need a 3 to 6 week window to see if an intervention is working. So this has already started that process. So I feel like when we refer a child to SST, we've already recognized there's a real concern. We're doing what we can, but we might not have all the answers, and then it brings the whole team together to say, let's take a deeper look at this. So it's strengthened that process and that process of trying to support a child before referring to IEP, which is its intent. It's small group support, Title I tutors, SSCs, TAM students, and they're all trained. So we get them trained in interventions, evidence-based interventions, and then they are implementing it with fidelity. And then it's also aligned our school improvement plan so that we can use this as a tool and guide all of the ways in which we spend our school funds, on personnel, on materials, on supplies, with real intention, because most of that comes from what we need for this. So just to why we feel it works, why we've stayed committed to it. If you look at our reading scores on MCAP in the fall of '22, the state overall was 48, Rock Hall was at 52, and you can see each breakdown. And then this year, the state was 48, but Rock Hall increased to 53% proficiency, but if you look across each grade band, we increased. And one way to look at this is our third grade from last year, this grade year increased, but our third graders increased from third grade to fourth grade. In every area, that same cohort of child also continued to grow. That being said, we've also looked to reduce the amount in the lowest proficiency rating. So if you look for reading on our last MCAP scores, in third grade, the state was at 9%, we were at 9%. Fourth grade 11, we had 0% of our fourth graders fall in the lowest proficiency, so none of them received a 1 on MCAP. 14 for the state in fifth grade and 12%. So we were less than the state in all areas for our lowest performing students. So we feel it is working. Likewise in math, last year the state was 34, we were 31. And you can see each grade. This is a real highlight for us because we grew from 31 to 36, but each grade grew by a lot. So having time to really reach those students and give them different ways to approach math concepts and build that those foundational skills in the lower grades has really, we think, attributed to this. Same with our lowest performing. Third grade was at 17, fourth 16, fifth 21, all lower than the state. So that is Academy in a nutshell. It takes a lot of time. It's a process, and we kind of all sit together in one room and talk about who do we have, what do our group sizes look like, does this kid really need to go here? But it has allowed each child to we know each child. I mean, we know them, we know how they're doing, we know what they need school-wide, so everybody's really a part of it. So I'll open up to questions.
Hi. So I have a couple things. First, I want to say congratulations on the improvements. I think that's wonderful, and it shows what you're doing is working and how hard your team is working. I had a couple of questions about the screenings that you do and how often you do the assessments to see if a kid could move out of the group that he's in. And then also, I'm curious about if when you compare MCAP versus MAP, if you find that they generally track or if you see disparities. I'm just curious about that.
So I'll answer the second part first.
Okay.
So we did, and it was interesting. This is the first year third grade MCAP scores have had a foundational skills category. Fourth and fifth do not. So there's reading informational, reading literature, and writing, but for third grade we had foundational skills. So that was also why some of those accelerated groups weren't quite as big, because we realized maybe they're hanging now, but when we get to multisyllabic words or words that they can't use, context clues, will they have the skills? So we kind of went on the more conservative end with that. What I will say is they do marry. I was surprised because MAP does not have writing in it. I didn't know how well they would, but it was pretty across what the student did. So we placed them first on their MAP, and then we remembered we had MCAP scores. So we cross-referenced, and I would say maybe we moved, I could probably count them on one hand. So it was a pretty good predictor. Yeah,
Nice.
and then
Assessments for how
so
often do
we
you assess?
progress monitor reading every other week.
Okay.
Through NWEA, and it's nationally normed, but we place the child in where they are. So say they're in, phonological awareness. They'll progress on national norms. Say maybe they need to reach a 504 to be considered in the 90th percentile. Then we take them out of that assessment, put them in the next level, and hope to see them progress. So that is how we use the reading. The math screen, the screeners that we use, we give, like the assessments that we give in the fall, and then in the winter, MCAP obviously only once a year. But we do use those progress monitoring. There's been times where staff have come to me and said, this child's in book A, and they don't need this. They know this, they were wasting their time, I think we need to move them. So it's very fluid. We're not going to leave them in an intervention. Sometimes, though, we do have to have the conversation with the child. If there's multiple data points that tell us that you're not performing, but we know what you can do, maybe you need to go into that intervention until you can show us, what we believe to be true. So students are very aware of it. And for some, they're in a reading intervention, but they're accelerated for math, and vice versa. So it's very fluid that way, which is why we don't place them in one for the whole thing. It's really, we spent a week planning for reading, and then we spent another week planning for math.
Thank you.
Great.
I've got a question. How much of your success, and it's been documented over the last couple of years, so congratulations for that, would you attribute to, you've got a very robust volunteer corps. I mean, to me, and you and I have spoken about this, I wish every school in our system had that volunteer corps. How much of that do you think plays into your ability to be able to do this? Because it just gives you a ton of extra eyes and hands.
So we all own the data. That math data has been an area of weakness for our district, I think statewide. But our after-school math tutoring, and that's sort of, last year we did do the math, and we kind of took that back, and we were like, our tutors did a really nice job with do the math.
Yeah,
So-
I'm not trying to take anything away from your teachers. They may be two different things. I'm just saying that you have
It's like a
very-
double dose because,
Yeah.
and as you all know, we honored our tutors last year. We had almost 40 of them. I have pictures. We've picked it back up. We've already started, and many of the tutor-student pairings stay the same. So that is like a life sentence because they don't want to let each other go. And so I think that it's an opportunity to provide additional enrichment that's outside of our classroom time. We have 45 minutes that we built in for this, but we have kids who need more than 45 minutes, particularly in math, and especially if that conceptual knowledge isn't there. So I think we're very fortunate. And our SSCs, our student support coaches, we've, for the most part, kept the same ones, and they're so committed. They know what they're doing now, you know, and I think that's also been, and they're just really committed. They're not volunteers, they're paid, but they'd probably do it if
But I
they
was going to
weren't.
say, you never know when that grant runs out, whether you may have gotten a volunteer for life out of that.
Well, we
So-
have, I mean, I was with my instructional coach, she's like, what are we gonna do when they leave? They're part of our staff. so
Yeah, well, and they may feel the same way.
I hope.
Yeah. So.
That's great. Any additional comments?
It's been really great to see. Every time I go to Rock Hall, I got to witness it for the first time this week, because this was the first week, and I was there for 2-3 days. And yeah, I did get my own little group, and I got to help out, and it was really cool to see that it was very individualized, and these kids were really getting exactly what they needed when they needed it. It was you met the kids where they were, and it was really awesome. And I'm really happy to see that it's been a success.
How many students from the Teacher Academy are going out to schools? Do we know?
There's 4 seniors.
There's 4.
I'm the only one at Rock Hall. So.
We're lucky, because she can have her own group.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Jill. I really appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you.
So I hope this was helpful, and the plan is to have every school share what they're doing to improve student proficiency, and for you to see and acknowledge the hard work that our teachers are putting in to make a difference. So,
Great. Okay, the next item on the agenda is personnel actions. Mr. Hushin.
Thank you, President Getz, Dr. Couch, school board members. Tonight, before you, I have a report of personnel actions that were discussed in closed session. A vote is now held on those stated personnel actions here in open session. With that said, the administration recommends approval of those stated personnel actions.
As Mr. Hushin has noted, the administration is recommending approval for the stated personnel actions. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. McGee. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Hushin.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is the 2023-2024 Board Negotiations Team.
Thank you, President Getz. Again, this is an action item due to the timelines outlined in the various collective bargaining agreements. Negotiation season is upon us. So tonight, before you, I am seeking your approval for the board's negotiating team, which includes me, Dan Hushin, as the chief negotiator, Gina Jacomowitz, Elisa Stewart, Thomas Porter, and Adam Constas as an advisory member.
Okay, the administration is recommending approval of the 2023-24 Board of
It's a typo.
Education Negotiations Team. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Rhodes. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Maddie?
Aye.
We have ayes across the board. Motion passes. Thank you so much, Mr. Hushin.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to move into board discussion. We'll start with you, Ms. Messick, if we could.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I'm used to doing the announcements now at this point. I attended the Kent County High School open house, and I was very happy to see all those presentations and the PTSA involvement. I'm very grateful that I was also able to attend the board retreat and discuss and learn more about the board. Thank you guys for inviting me. For my calendar of events, tomorrow Delaware Valley College will visit Kent County High School at 12 o'clock. There will also be a PTSA meeting tomorrow at the high school at 6 o'clock in the Media Center. October 11th is an early dismissal for students. October 12th, Rock Hall is celebrating Fire Prevention Week with an assembly with Ms. Reardon and a visit from the fire department. October 13th, Miss Jessie McGee will be recognized as Kent County's Teacher of the Year at the Teacher of the Year Gala in Baltimore. Friday, October 13th, Garnett will host a trunk or treat at 5:30. At the Rock Hall will have a pumpkin decorating contest booth at the Fall Fest on October 14th, and the Race for Character, which is also a beneficiary for Rock Hall Elementary. October 14th, the Brigade of Blue from the Kent County High School will be competing at the Tournament of Bands at Colonel Richardson High School. I want to wish the band good luck. October 16th, York College will visit Kent County High School at 9 o'clock. October 19th, the elementary schools and middle schools are closed and will be holding parent-teacher conferences. The high school will have a half day. There is also no school on October 20th for students or staff. Galena would like to invite everyone to the grand opening of their duty center on October 24th at 6 o'clock. The Kent County High School will also hold the PTSA on October 20th, the PSAT on October 24th for juniors. Rock Hall is hosting a Fall Fest October 27th at 3 o'clock. On October 27th, will be our homecoming game at the high school versus Snow Hill at 6 o'clock, and the homecoming dance will be that Saturday, October 28th at 7. October 28th, there will also be the Hall of Fame celebration at the high school. That will start at 1. The middle school will have a Spirit Week that from the 30th to the 3rd for Halloween. The Rock Hall Halloween Parade will take place on October 31st at 2:30, and Garnett will also have a fall parade in Chestertown.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Sullivan?
I wanted to mention that I noticed that the board doc site had been updated, so thank you, Gail, and thank you, Dan, for that. It looks good. Like I'm sure you're going to be hearing this evening, along with many of my fellow board members, I attended the MABE conference in Annapolis last week. And this was the first time I was able to stay for the entirety of the conference. And it was good to catch up with other Board of Ed members from around the state. On Monday, I attended the Communicating Board of Education Roles and Responsibilities to the Public workshop. They had some really good suggestions that I plan to try to incorporate whenever possible. On Tuesday, I could have spent all day in the Blueprint Funding workshop with presenter Rachel Heiss. Rachel is the Executive Director of the Blueprint Implementation and Accountability Board, also known as the IAB. Many of us brought up the funding challenges that our individual counties are facing, and Joe and I have requested a follow-up meeting with Rachel to discuss some of the particular challenges of Kent County. I also attended the Board Governance Legal Update, which included great information on pending cases and decisions that impact our schools. The student member of the board panel was a particular highlight, like our SMOB. These young people are committed to making an impact during their terms. I was particularly interested in hearing about how one SMOB had developed their own student advisory cabinet. They have over 40 students that they regularly consult with on Board of Ed agenda items, school decisions, and then report back during Board of Ed meetings. Also on Tuesday, State Superintendent Chaudhary gave a detailed analysis of Maryland MCAP scores. Some progress has been made, but we are all still concerned about math scores, especially for certain student groups. Student achievement was a topic at our recent board retreat as well, and will continue to be a goal that we'll be monitoring. Many of the workshop presentations at MABE, if you're interested, are actually available on their website. And I think it's worth it. The PowerPoint presentations are really full of lots of good information, and it's worth viewing. I even want to go back and look through things again myself. And the next Citizens Advisory Committee meeting will be next Monday, October 16th at 5:30 p.m., and the agenda for that should go out later this week. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Rhodes?
I want to say once again, thank you, Dr. Couch, for making this middle school a reality. It's been a lot of work. I've enjoyed hearing everyone's discussion about it. I did go to the MABE conference, and a lot of the things that Ms. Sullivan mentioned, I went to a lot of those meetings, but the one major thing I got out of that whole event, there was a lot of discussion about the blueprint, and we really need to study it. I made some great contacts that I can reach out to because I want to learn more about it. And again, I want our community to know what this blueprint's about. I talked to a lot of people, and some people are just clueless. They don't know what's coming down the pike. But it was great going to the conference. Our board all the board was there, and there was a lot of nice meetings. A lot of great people that I met, and it was very professional. I enjoyed it. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Ms. McGee?
Like my other colleagues, I was proud that all 5 Kent County Board of Education members were at MABE. We were the smallest county, but we were all there, and our county right across the river had 1 representative. So don't think that your Kent County Board of Education isn't working for you. All the workshops were great. 4 of us sat in on the legal update. Mr. Rhodes and I were sitting almost side by side at the blueprint engagement the first thing on Tuesday morning. And one of the things that was really interesting to me was, so we're representing the smallest county in the state with 5 schools. Montgomery County has 211 schools. But believe it or not, they face the same, in a way, it's different, but it's the same. They're struggling to fund the blueprint as well, to be able, especially from the being able to starting salaries at $60,000 for teachers. It's something that's really no county's going to be able to do, no matter how big or small you are. First session I went to was on school safety, which was really eye-opening to me. I think I know I was guilty of it. When you think of school safety, you think of school violence. Believe it or not, school violence is the last thing on the litany of school safety. The first thing, believe it or not, is a weather incident, whether we're going to have a hurricane or a tornado, whether we're going to have something like a COVID epidemic. They shared some really interesting ways to combat that, how to be proactive let's talk about violence for a second. They can tell you 95% of people students who take violent actions in schools are males. They can tell you what are the most likely days that are going to happen. There are 2 days in April. One of them's Adolf Hitler's birthday. It's all about white supremacy. And racism, they can tell you exactly. But I was floored by the fact that violence was not the #1 topic about school safety. And I'm not going to use any more of my time to talk about it. I'm hoping that maybe when we have our quarterly meeting, that maybe all of us, because we have not been able to share with each other what we learned, and some of us were there at the same time, but we went to some different things, and I think it would be really interesting to share what we all learned there. But it was nice to network. Like I said again, I was really proud that all 5 Kent County Board of Education members were there, because I think that is a testament to really how involved and committed we all are to our school system.
The safety presentation is on the MABE site. I noticed. I was going to check it out because you had spoken so highly of it.
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes. I was also at the conference, and I enjoyed being a part. And most of my colleagues have already talked about the different things that we've done. I just I'm kind of overjoyed about the fact that the elementary and middle have came before us and told us about the strategies and different things that they have put into place and practices that they intend to use for the betterment of our students and for them so that they could improve as far as their grade levels and giving them the attention that they need right where they are. I think that's great. I also think that trying to understand the different behaviors that the children have, because I've always said that when you see a behavior, we shouldn't group the behaviors. We should look at each student as individuals and try to combat it or address it where it is, so that we can understand what each student is going through. Because if we don't hit it and try to address it in the foundational where it comes from, then they'll never be healed from it, or it could change their life if we would just give that time to do so. Also, it will stop it from being such a distraction to others, So I'm glad about that. And I also had took a workshop, I forget what it's called, but it was talking about using the students at the high school to come over and be a part of, in the other grades, like the middle school and the elementary, to talk to the students and teach them and help out. And I was glad to hear that our student board member is doing just that, because I was kind of excited about it when I heard about how it was, and even the girl that was involved in it, that they talked about how much it had done for her confidence and even directing her to want to be a teacher, et cetera. And I know that we need teachers. So with this program, it helps us to have more, some people who may not have been interested in becoming a teacher, as a result of that, now they want to. So I'm just happy to hear that, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Great, thank you, Ms. Dorsey. So I'm also just going to pile on with the MABE comments, but I'm going to come at it from a different way. The fact that all of the board members were there, I will assure you that I had received many comments about the smallest county coming out in force. There were a lot of folks, and even our friends in the large school systems, that didn't have all of their board members attend, and they were super thankful and actually quite impressed. And from a personal note, I, at this last conference, had come off as president of MABE. So for me, I'm just really appreciative for all of you to come out for that time, for that conference. It really meant a lot to me, and so it was really great that you guys were all there and to enjoy that. I don't know if you saw the big binder that I had. That was this conference script, so everything that was going on. So if I was kind of in and out, I apologize, but I know we had some spirited comments in the blueprint.
We did.
I think we kind of hijacked that meeting. So anyway, but it was. I'll just tell you, it was a great conference, and one of the takeaways. So before I go on, everyone, thank you. The last day, Ms. Sullivan, Dr. Couch, and I were there. It was nice for me to be able to sit in the audience, not up on the dais. The incoming president, Michelle Corkadell from Anne Arundel County, gave me permission to pull out her parts of her speech that she gave, and it talked about the ace in the hole. And in that space, and I'll just read excerpts from it, she said, "An ace in the hole is a hidden advantage or resource kept in resource until needed. To be an ace in the hole for each and every student, we must be an effective advocate that is credible and effective." And she said, let me elaborate. So from the advocate standpoint, advocate, and this is for board members, advocate through your relationships, share the stories of our students, their successes, their challenges, their dreams and aspirations. C, be the credible expert in education for them. Then she goes on to just talk about we can improve our policies and curricula to meet the new common goals while effectively dealing with emerging challenges if we work together as a team. And then E, to forge, polish, and practice our craft of school board leadership to help become the most effective advocate, remembering that advocacy is about who you are advocating for, not you or your campaign agenda. We signed up to advocate for the students, period. So interestingly enough, in that space, there were ACE cards across the conference. So I will tell you that I lifted a few, and I brought some for everyone on the board. So you can keep them here, wallet, whatever, but I just brought ACE cards if you wanted to pass them down for everyone, just to remind yourselves to be the ACE for our students. And I think as we all showed at the conference, we really ended up, being in that space. So I thought that was really great. So thank you all for that. Just one housekeeping note: the November 13th meeting, I will not be able to be here. I've been asked in my private sector to go present to the board of directors and senior leadership for the company that I work for. So my ask is, from a timing standpoint, can we look at November 6th on the calendar? How does that look for everyone's calendar? Unless you want to have it without me. I mean, it's fine too.
6 works for me.
November 6th?
Yeah.
I think it should be fine for me.
I think it'll be fine.
Frank, you okay with that too?
I don't see my calendar, but it sounds good.
Okay. Ms. Dorsey, are you okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I appreciate that. Maddie, are you? Okay, so I really appreciate that, guys. I received that late call this afternoon to be able to present in front of the brass, if you will. So I appreciate that and your accommodation. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to education services. The first item up is the September 30th, 2023 student enrollment count.
So at this point, I would like to welcome Dr. Vienna Walker, who's our Supervisor of Student Services, to provide you with an overview of our September 30th enrollment count.
Good evening, Dr. Couch, President Getz, and board members.
Good evening.
Tonight, I'm back to present the September 30th enrollment report. And based on numbers rolled up from 2023 graduates and new kindergarten enrollments, we expected a decrease of 14 students. The enrollment spreadsheet shows comparisons between September 30th, 2022 and September 30th, 2023. As you can see, elementary enrollment is up by 4 students, while middle school is down by 17, and high school is down by 11. Although our total enrollment has decreased by 24 students, the number of students eligible for funding as of the time of this, that I uploaded the report this morning, or that Ms. Gale uploaded it for me. The students eligible for funding was 47 students. An increase of 47 students. And this number will, again, increase because we are receiving educational benefit forms. They're still coming in. So we're still waiting on forms, and that will go up. This year, we will receive funding for 3- and 4-year-olds whose family income is at or below 300% of the federal poverty level, or who are experiencing homelessness. So that's why that number will increase.
So just, if you don't mind, let me interject here for a moment. One of the things that we've done is we looked at, and Dr. Walker looked at last year's enrollment based on pre-K through 12th grade, and then compared it to this year's pre-K through 12th grade. And so what we had to do was we have typically not received funding for pre-K students. And we knew that that was coming down the pike. That was always in the law and was going to happen in FY25. So next year, we will be funded for pre-K students. So the numbers that you see with the 1758 and the 1734, 1,734 students for this year, incorporates every single pre-K student. So then what we did was we backed out the pre-K students for this year. So we backed out the 46 students at Galena, the 33 students at Garnett, the 27 students at Rock Hall, and we added in only the students that meet that threshold for funding. So if they met the 300% poverty level, then we can claim them for funding, and that includes our 3-year-old students as well. So at this point in time, we know we're going to see an increase of 47 students, but we know that is going to increase even more because we're still collecting those forms. We believe that we might see 15 to 20 more students that increase. So we've got until the end of the week to collect those forms and to be able to see what those numbers are. So we could conceivably see an increase to our enrollment by 57 students, maybe 65 students. So that is going to be a huge boost for us because, we won't be on the declining side, if you will. It will show an increase. Those new educational benefit forms, we also utilize to determine the students that qualify for Title I. So we're collecting those as well, but it's critical for us to focus on the pre-K students right now for funding.
And you
So-
said that we'll have funding for all pre-K next year?
No,
Just
only
still-
for those
Okay.
that are 300% above the poverty level.
Okay. And I think just in case people didn't know, prior to this year, no pre-K was funded by MOE. And so we were doing universal pre-K without any funding to cover those students. It was all coming from breaking up the shares into smaller pieces.
Right. And we're still not funded for every single pre-K student. Next year, Tier 1, and then we'll gradually increase. And because we have a high poverty level, that's why we have such a greater number that qualify. So like we said, this is where we're at today. And we know it's going to increase because I was talking to staff today, trying to see if we could get those numbers, and the principals are doing an awesome job getting those forms in, so that we can collect and adjust. But there will be a cutoff date, and we know it's going to be this week.
So MOE is increasing.
Well, our
The number
our
of students
enrollment,
eligible for
our
MOE.
enrollment will increase, which will ultimately mean more state and local funding.
Okay, so we currently have 12 students enrolled in the Kent Blended Learning Academy. We have capacity for 15, so right now we're at 12, and we expect those, as time goes on, to those 3 seats to be taken.
Do you know if, are they all high school age students? Do you know the
They are
breakdown?
not.
Okay,
There are a couple middle school students.
okay.
All right, for summer enrollments, we had 95 new enrollments. 31 were from another Maryland public school, 27 from another state, 9 from a local private school like in Kent County, 8 from a Maryland private school outside of Kent County, 3 from an out-of-state private school, 2 from another country, 7 from homeschooling, and then there are 8 additional kindergartners who are not included in the numbers previous.
And typically that happens because we have some of our population that go to other pre-K providers, and then we know that they're going to come back to our kindergarten. But, so we know that we typically will see them integrate or matriculate back into our school system for kindergarten.
Can you scroll up that slide? I think we're,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next slide is withdrawals. And we had 95 enrollments and 94 withdrawals, kind of a wash a little bit. 49 transferred from another Maryland public school system, 20 transferred from another state, 3 transferred to a Maryland non-public or private school outside of Kent County, 11 transferred to a non-public or private school in Kent County, 1 transferred to a non-public school in another state, 3 withdrawals, and what happens is before September 30th, if there are students we don't know their whereabouts, we have to take them out for the September 30th count, but we still look for those students and make contacts with families and other school districts just so that we know where they are. And then 7 transfer to homeschooling.
Interestingly enough, and it's always depressing to me, but we saw last week, we saw probably about 6 to 8 new students, but we didn't get to count them in the September 30 count because they enrolled after September 30. So it's always just frustrating to me, like, why couldn't you have come just a week earlier, you know? But, I mean, we're happy to have them, and it'll help us in the overall. But as Dr. Walker said, we have a high mobility rate in Kent County. That's been traditionally what we see. Typically, what you want to see, what goes out, comes in, and that has been the trend that we've seen for the last 15 to 20 years. So, you know, we just have high mobility. Families move in for jobs and some move out for jobs, and so that's just the way it happens. But it was almost a wash. Like she said, we had 95 new students and 94 exits. So we've seen it, there have been years when we've seen more going out than coming in. So that's really pretty close.
Absolutely. We also have 244 students in the county who are attending non-public or private schools, and this is a breakdown by grade. There were 4 different institutions that we reached out to, and this is breakdown by grade.
And that's held pretty steady over the last, well, we saw it go up higher during COVID, and we lost quite a number of students to homeschool and private schools during COVID. We got some of those students back, but a great majority stayed as non-public private schools students.
Do you have the number for high school?
No, because they usually come back for high
Yeah.
school.
Okay. Oh,
Well,
this
because-
is just the students that didn't come this year to, I mean, I'm curious how many, maybe I'm not asking this question correctly.
Well, our private schools don't, I think only one goes past 8th grade. Is that right?
Oh, so, okay.
So they typically return to.
No,
public school.
well, I was thinking of somebody who would, of kids who were attending high school privately, not in Kent County. That's what I want, that was what I was really
Oh,
interested in.
yeah, okay.
How many
Well-
how many high school students are
Well-
going to are not going to Kent County High School? That's what I'm
Okay,
wondering.
so one of the things that we noted, and I'm thinking one in particular, they published their graduates and where they were from. And the one high school that is just right outside of Kent County, we only had 4.
Well, yeah, it was 1 or 4. 'cause,
Yeah,
we-
it was
Well,
very
and we're-
small number.
And we're not sure, because Chestertown address could be Queen Anne's County.
Yeah,
But we
this-
both looked at that.
Yeah, that was the first thing I looked at, was how many should potentially be going to Kent County, and I looked for Chestertown or Galena or
Yeah.
any of those addresses that were in our county, and there were not more than 4. So,
Yeah. But it's also possible it could be an off year for them.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
next year,
true.
This coming year could be 10.
Different,
Yeah, okay.
Okay, last month for the preliminary report, I believe you asked me to come back with a comparison of the homeschool students from 22, 23,
Yeah.
and the homeschool students we have now, and it's pretty steady, as you can see,
Yeah.
139 and 138. Was pretty steady. For our out-of-zone applications, we had 60, and all 60 were ultimately approved. And on the last slide, McKinney-Vento, students and families who are experiencing homelessness. Last year, we had 73 students and 54 families. Right now, at September 30th, we have 46 students and 36 families, but I know that will grow because this is based on what families have recertified. So we know that there are families who are still experiencing homelessness who have not recertified, and we're working to reach them.
And could you define what homelessness, what is considered homelessness?
So homelessness means you do not have a fixed and regular place to sleep at night. It could be, you could be living in a car, at a campground. You could be living in a home that does not have the proper, like water and sewage and like maybe roof or whatever, anything that's substandard and not livable. We also have unaccompanied youth, so any student of any age who is not living with their legal guardian could be considered an unaccompanied youth, so that can make you homeless also.
Okay, thank you.
Or you could be doubled up with another family
Yeah.
because of hardship. Okay, any other questions? All right, so
No.
that-
Thank you, Dr. Walker. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I wanted to commend Dr. Walker also. I know she has been out on bereavement leave due to a loss in her family, and I appreciate the fact that she made the trip this evening to present such an important report and taking the time to put the report together for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is procedure 600-5 grading.
Okay, and I don't know that you have that, but I have copies. I don't know that it's uploaded. It is?
Yep.
Okay. Like the It's the memo, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so tonight, the changes to the grading procedure 600-5 will be presented for information only.
Can I ask a question? I know a lot of times when we make changes to policies, they're driven by state language and changes at the state level. Is that what a lot of this represents?
It does, except sometimes when you see it, I'm assuming that it's exact language that has changed. In this case, it is our policy that we needed to add to.
Okay. Is there anything real significant that you'd like to point out to us?
Yes, a couple of things. I wouldn't say real
Okay.
significant, but a couple of things.
Okay.
So every year by October 1st, MSDE requires schools to submit their grading policy, and then eventually we get feedback.
Okay.
Based on feedback from last fall, we needed to make a few changes, which included an explanation of where grade change forms specifically about when students need a grade change, where those forms are housed and how staff can readily access them. So it says grade change forms are in the district's student information system, Power School, and accessed by the teacher through their grade book in Power Teacher. Also, they told us we needed to do a step-by-step, we have a step-by-step process, but to write it down in our policy for how grade changes should occur, including timelines. So it says to make grade change, teachers must request the district's data analyst open their grade book. The grade book will remain open or unlocked for 24 hours before closing. The teacher will receive an email from the data analyst with a notification of when the 24-hour period begins. Once the school counselor and principal sign the grade change form, it will be sent to the district's data analyst for first review before being sent to the supervisor of student services for a final review, signature and date. Also, they wanted us to add the provision for student services supervisor to conduct a yearly audit and to take corrective action. So in September of each school year, the supervisor of student services will complete an audit of all grade changes made by each school before submitting a report of any findings and any corrective actions to the state superintendent at MSDE. And that, again, is by October 1st. So that did occur this year. And
That sounds like a daunting assignment. Was it?
well, luckily, there were small numbers.
Okay.
So, because you're supposed to choose a sample size and explain, but since we're so small, we just audit all of them.
Okay.
And I can tell you that there were 83 grade changes, 79 for the high school, 4 for the middle school. So that's not too bad. Also, we needed to add a clear understanding of who approves and signs off on the grade changes. It's super important that the principal, not the assistant principal, signs off on it before going to the data analyst, and then it would go to the supervisor of student services. So you can see that. Also, on the next page, they wanted us to add where and how the documentation would be stored. So these files will remain at the central office for 5 years before shredding. Right? There is another section to the grade changes, and Ms. Amelia Marcosian is going to explain that.
This is the accountability component. We're matching what the state is now asking for the new COMAR that went through. I also handed you a flyer that went out to every ninth grader and making the families aware. It's also on our website. All of our assessment components on our school website have also been updated to match what we require for our assessments and what we require for graduation. The new COMAR, just to shorten it out, specifically says that all ninth grade students who are enrolled in biology and government, which we don't have any government right now in our ninth grade, but any ninth grade students that are in biology or government, the LS MISA or the government test this year will count for 20% of their final grade. So it is significant because now we're holding students accountable, and that state test is now going towards their final overall grade. So, little flyer about to the parents, and all the information is also on our website. Any questions?
Okay,
And this is just a procedure, so it's for information only.
great. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into administrative services. Ms. Stewart, you've got a huge section tonight.
Yes, I do.
All right, so we're going to start off tonight with our monthly expenditures and revenue report. As you will see here, and this will show you pretty much our revenues that we have received to date, as well as our expenditures that have been expended as of 9/30 of 2023. All right, so we look here, as you can see where we're at with our Fund 1 revenues received, it's about 10.5 million. Fund 3, 706,000. That's our school construction. Fund 5 is our food service, about 162, to give us a total as of September 30th, $11,389,102.13. As we move over to our current expense fund, we have expended 69% of that. As you can see, majority of those encumbrances are salaries. If we move on to our school construction fund, this just shows the carryover projects that we are still in the process of finalizing. That is our Kent County High School roof project, as well as the KCMS feasibility study. Then we have our Fund 5, our food service. We've expended about 54%, same there, encumbrances, mainly salary. And our restricted funding. And this restricted funding pretty much shows the new grants that we have for 2024, and we're looking to do our grant rollover. So by, I think, the next board meeting, that will also include our carryover grants. And then here's just the overview of all of our receipts and expenditures for each funding source, and that pretty much concludes September 30. If any questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Stewart? Looks like there's no questions, Ms. Stewart. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, the fiscal year 23 unrestricted funds budget amendment number 2.
All right, so this I am bringing back for board approval because there was a typo on the memo at the bottom where it's showing here with the student pupil services and the student health services. I had the amount for the above, which was 16,000, and it shouldn't have been. It should have been the 8,300. So I am asking for board approval to request the updated unrestricted funds budget amendment 2 for fiscal year 23.
Okay, as Ms. Stewart had mentioned, the board approval is being requested for the updated unrestricted funds budget amendment number 2 for fiscal year 2023. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Ms. Dorsey has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Sullivan. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Stewart. We'll move on to fiscal year 23 unrestricted funds budget amendment number 3.
All right, so this budget amendment pretty much concludes our fiscal year 2023 pretty much financials. As tonight, our auditors came to present our financials. In reconciling that, we had to bring this for board approval to increase mid-level administration to 70,000 and decrease instructional salaries by 70,000. When I initially did the budget amendment 1 with the cap reconciliation, all of the instructional salaries were budgeted into the instructional salaries category and not the assistant principal, which falls under mid-level administration. So I did that on the back end to try to line everything up, but that was not the correct way. So bringing this back so that we can decrease instructional salaries by 70,000 to accommodate the mid-level administration budget overage, to reallocate that funding to make sure that everything's in line. And then during the process as well with school construction, reconciling that in the audit, there were some operating costs from that we need to carry and account for on the current expense side. So I am asking for a decrease in fixed charges category of 7,000 to increase our operations by 7,000 to cover for that deficit. So I am asking board approval for the unrestricted funds budget amendment number 3 for fiscal year 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. As she has just noted, she is requesting board approval for the unrestricted funds budget amendment number 3 for fiscal year 2023. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Rhodes has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Dorsey. Any further comments or questions?
I just have one question, and for the first amendment, it seems pretty clear, like it was just a moving it from one box to the other. I'm a little bit more curious about and it's such a small amount, the decreased fixed charges to increase operations. When they were budgeted as a fixed charge, what was that covering essentially?
So essentially, our fixed charges covers our benefits, it covers our insurance costs, liabilities. The issue is I couldn't pull it from maintenance because when I did the budget amendment 3, I pretty much tied that down to 0. So the available funding majority is in our fixed charges where we have savings from and instructional salaries. So that was pretty much the only category that I can move that funding to cover for the operations.
And so we're not going to have?
No, the money is there, it's just
Gotcha.
in a different category.
Right. And that's for
Thank you.
23.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the unrestricted funds budget amendment number 1, fiscal year 2024.
All right, so pretty much every year I have to come back to the board to ask for a budget amendment in our current expense budget. As you all are aware, in special education, we receive non-public placement funding. Every year, we only budget about $100,000 because we do not know the exact amount. So for 2024, we were awarded $128,400 for non-public placements from the state. So we are requesting that the special education budget increase by $28,400 on the revenue and expense side. And then on the administrative side, we did receive state funding for the blueprint coordinator position. Initially, when we went through with the budget, we budgeted about $25,000 for that on the state side, but the state has awarded us $43,073 for that funding source. So we're asking to increase the administrative category revenue and expense by $18,073 to be in line with that.
Is that for the duration of the blueprint? Will they be supplying the funds for the blueprint coordinator for the duration of the 10 years or whatever?
It should be. I
Okay.
mean, it's in law, so
Okay.
unless the law gets changed.
Right. Okay. Thank
That's
you.
our share from the state.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. Laws change, but for right now, that's all I can tell you.
It's on the books right now.
We get it. Okay.
Do we have any students with disabilities being placed?
Right now, I know of 2. I'm not sure if Dr. King's in there, but I'm not sure if we have any more, but I know of 2 that we do have as non-public placements.
Why do I think it can be as much as $100,000 per student? Am I making that up?
It can be if
Okay. Depending on the
they're
level.
lodging. and
Right, okay.
If it's a day,
Is it-
if it's a day
Transportation,
placement.
all that stuff is included.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know in the past we've gone over the bridge.
Yeah.
Not the Chester River Bridge either, I'm talking the Bay
Yeah.
Bridge, okay.
Okay, the administration is requesting board approval of the unrestricted funds budget amendment number 1 for fiscal year 2024. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Ms. Sullivan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McGee. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Upper Shore Regional Council CTE Equipment Scholarship Grant.
Right, so the Upper Shore Regional Council is awarding Kent County Public Schools an amount of $5,000 for CTE students at the Kent County High School, and the funds will be utilized to purchase materials and other educational needs pertaining to the success of the students in CTE. And so bringing this for board approval of the Upper Shore Regional Council CTE Equipment Scholarship Grant.
Great.
Was this a grant that we applied, who applied for the grant? Was it in central office? Was it a teacher?
This was at central office with Tom Porter.
Okay.
And so I believe they.
That's a grant we get every year.
A grant, okay.
Okay, the administration is requesting board approval of the Upper Shore Regional Council CTE Equipment Scholarship Grant. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Rhodes. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Public Health Response Award. Ms. Stewart, you're on a roll tonight.
So administration is seeking board approval of this. As you're aware, last year, the Kent County Health Department received, I believe, a COAG grant, and we were able to utilize that to assist with our nursing services. This year, Kent County Health Department has received a public health response grant, and they are awarding Kent County Public Schools in the amount of $40,672 for fiscal year 2024 to be utilized to assist us with the nursing services at Kent County Public Schools. So we are requesting.
Okay, the administration is requesting board approval of the Public Health Response Award. Do we have a motion to approve?
Any chance that's a multi-year grant, or is that just for this year?
No.
I think we just take what we get.
We take what we get.
And just
Pray.
in the
Right.
line item per se, I mean, we're not, I didn't know if you had a certain way of how you wanted to allocate it, or it's just to help in general pay for the school nurses?
It helps us in general,
Okay.
just typically because we don't have a very fluid budget for our school nurses, and so this helps in the general supplies and materials that they need to run the department.
Did the community schools had some funding for school healthcare? Didn't they, or am I remembering that
Well,
incorrectly?
that's for the nurse,
For the nurse.
just to pay for the nurse,
Gotcha. Okay.
not for supplies.
Thank you.
Okay, the administration is requesting board approval of the Public Health Response Award. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that a motion.
Ms. McGee has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Sullivan. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Next on the agenda is the CIP Capital Improvement Plan. Mr. Kirby.
Good evening, President Getz, Dr. Couch, members of the board.
Good evening.
I'm here tonight to present to you our FY25 CIP, or Capital Improvement Plan. Essentially, Dr. Couch kind of in her report updated everybody where we are. So basically, this is just our report to the state, letting them know funding-wise what we're requesting for fiscal year 25 for design services for the Kent County Middle School. And now that the board has reached its verdict on where the location, it makes it easy for us because we prepared this report already utilizing the Chestertown location, so now we don't have to go back in and change it, so thank you for that. Saves us a little time. But essentially this report basically just outlines current projects and then any future projects down the pipeline. So in the cover letter for this year's report, we've let the state know about every which way possible at this point in time that we're going to be going after increased funding. So now we've put it in writing in our CIP as well, that on some grounds that Dr. Couch had already mentioned in terms of, our poverty levels and everything. So, so if you have any questions about current projects, future projects, we do try to look out about 5 years in advance in these, in this report every year. So we do have down the road something for the high school. It's got some deficiencies as well. Obviously, we're taking one step at a time here, but this kind of each year just lets the state and the IAC know that, this is what's coming down the pipeline in terms of other potential future projects, just to keep it, in their mind as well for going forward.
I read the letter earlier and think that it was really laid out well how Kent County should be eligible for this increased state share. So
Absolutely.
I thank you for all the work that went into that. And this won't hold up the process, but are we also sending a copy of this to the county commissioners?
We
Well,
have to have
we
their
have to
approval for the
present.
final submission,
Okay.
which is due
Yeah.
at the end of November. So this will be going to the county commissioners as well for their approval.
Will we be requesting a letter of support
Yes.
from
Yes,
them
it-
also?
it- yep,
Okay,
it's
good.
required in the final submission due at the end of
And-
November. so.
Yeah, we'll certainly ask them to, and they can put a caveat and a qualifier that, you know, based on state funding and available local funds, it's basically kind of a similar letter that they gave Chesapeake College.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, the administration is recommending approval of the 2025 capital improvement plan. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McGee. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Kirby.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next on the item, or excuse me, next item on the agenda, it's getting late, folks.
Yeah.
Policy IFC, Educational Equity, Ms. Jacomowitz.
Good evening, President Getz, Dr. Couch, members of the board. I've returned tonight to request your approval of policy IFC. Based on your input from the last meeting, there has been one addition, which includes emphasis on creating a welcoming and affirming environment. So other than that, the other pieces have stayed in place, and we request your approval.
Great. As Ms. Jacomowitz mentioned, this item is for approval. It is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve this policy?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Ms. Sullivan. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Second by Ms. Dorsey. Any further comments or questions?
I just wanted to say one thing, and I think I mentioned this before with another policy, about considering changing any time we talk about his or her to they or them to be more inclusive. And I know that it isn't required at this point from Comar, but I just wanted to mention that as well. And I wanted to say, this is something from the workshop last week, that this, I feel, falls under the core value of Students First, where we talk about individual learning experiences will meet the diverse needs of our students. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. We have a motion. We have a second. Are there any additional comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ms. Messick?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes as approved.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Policy D, Fiscal Management Procedures Manual Review. Ms. Stewart? Back again.
She has 3 policies.
Goodness. Talk about hogging
So
the mic.
I'm bringing the policies back, essentially Policy D. Pull it up here.
Fiscal Management Procedures Manual.
Oh, okay, awesome. All right, so Policy D, the Fiscal Management Procedures Manual, requesting for board approval with the updates as stated. And if there was any questions since the last meeting that we brought this forward.
And nothing was changed from the last meeting?
No, nothing was
Okay.
changed.
Okay, the administration is requesting board approval of Policy D, Fiscal Management Procedures Manual. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. McGee has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Sullivan has the second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ms. Messick?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion passes. Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is Policy DA, Fiscal Management Goals Review.
Right, so Policy DA, same with this, the fiscal management goals, brought this to you as the board with the update. As noted, since then, there has been no changes, so unless you have any further questions, administration is requesting board approval for the update for this policy.
Okay. As Ms. Stewart just mentioned, administration is requesting board approval on policy DA, fiscal management goals review. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. McGee has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Sullivan has the second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ms. Messick?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Motion passes as presented. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is policy DAA, fiscal management priorities review. Excuse me.
All right, this is the last policy that I have to request for board approval. As noted, this policy DAA, fiscal management priority objectives, there were no changes, but the last time, well, I want to say it was adopted November 5th, 2001. So we brought this to the board's attention for review and requesting for approval with the policy as stated. There were no updates needed as it does relate to our current processes.
Okay. Administration is requesting board approval of policy DAA, fiscal management priorities review. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Rhodes. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ms. Messick?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Motion passes as presented. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is policy CC, administrative organizational plan.
You have before you the second reading of policy CC, which is the administrative organizational plan. This is reflective of the changes that we have in the administrative org chart, elimination of some positions and addition of the Blueprint Implementation Coordinator, who is also taking over the CTE responsibilities. So recommend approval for policy CC.
Okay, as Dr. Couch just mentioned, the administration is recommending approval of policy CC, administrative organizational plan. Do we have a motion to approve?
I have a question.
Please.
Who is the executive assistant that works between the Board of Education and the superintendent?
Ms. Manley?
Okay. So again, if I'm looking at this, I just want to go over this one more time because we got into a little argument before. The Kent County citizens vote for the Board of Education, and the Board of Education supersedes the superintendent and tells her what to do. Is that correct? We vote, and if we suggest something to the superintendent, she has to follow what we vote on?
The superintendent runs the school system. We provide oversight as we're elected officials by the citizens, and we work collaboratively, and then we work down the org chart accordingly.
Okay, I sort of disagree with that, but because it says right on the chart that we are in charge of the superintendent. I'm just wondering how this all works. That's all I want to know.
Adam, could you talk about board governance?
Sure. So the Board of Education sits as a body and can make, can vote to approve, reject, or modify recommendations brought to it by the superintendent. And so in that respect, the board can vote to reject a recommendation of the superintendent, modify it, or affirm it. So I think that's, is that what you're getting at?
No, what I'm getting at is if we want to vote on something, can we suggest to the superintendent that she does something that we want her to change, whatever? Or does she not take our advice? If we want to vote to go into all the schools or to do whatever we want to do, can we suggest to her that that's what we want to do, or is that her decision?
The board votes on a policy.
There's a board policy.
The superintendent carries it out and executes it in the day-to-day function of her job and overseeing the administrative staff. So, if the board votes on a policy, take any one of our policies that we voted on tonight, the board expects that the administration will carry that out. And you hear reports about how that's being done. And you can change that in another meeting and vote for another policy or another directive at a meeting if you want. So I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it, but I feel like that's the sort of the core essence of it. Is that the board sits and meets as a body, and this is how the board functions in its meeting, by voting to approve, reject, or modify recommendations that come before it.
But can the board make their own recommendations and go to the superintendent and supersede that we want her to do something, or whoever the future superintendent is?
I guess you would make a motion,
Okay.
but the board acts as a body. And
I just wanted to clear this up, because it looks like.
The overall broad objectives of the school system. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't think those are inconsistent points. I think it's, you know, I mean, the board acts as you all are sitting here. And if you want to vote on something that you want to see done, I mean, there's certain day-to-day functions that the board does not handle, but you can enact an overall policy about a mission or objective or vision that you want to achieve, and ask that the administration carry that out.
The reason I'm asking that question is, before I took this job, I talked to a lot of representatives around the county, and they all said that, you know, I would say Dr. Couch is going to do this or that, and they said, no, you're supposed to be able to tell her what to do. And I just wanted to clarify that, because it says it right here.
Yeah, have you all not been doing, I mean, I think you all have been doing that through your votes. You know, she brings issues to you, policies to you, objectives to you. You ask her to do certain things, and I think that's what's going on.
I'm reading, if I can, from the minutes that we all approved earlier tonight from our board retreat, which we had a lively discussion about the issue Mr. Rhodes is bringing up. It was during our discussion of the board handbook. During the discussion, it was noted that the board governs and the superintendent manages. The superintendent works for the board as a whole. However, the superintendent must run this entire system. Ms. Young, who was the facilitator from MABE, stated the role of the board is to support and direct the superintendent. Does that add clarification, or does that just make it muddier?
Okay, the administration.
I'll just refer you all to 4108 of the education article, which outlines the board's duties. And, you know, much of the way, there's a back and forth, which I think Mr. Getz is sort of alluding to, whereby the superintendent also has a number of duties that are enumerated in the law. And many of those duties she can carry out on her own. Some of those duties she has to recommend to you all for approval. But, you know, the superintendent and the administration are the ones that are here on a day-to-day basis running the operation, but ultimately, the superintendent reports to the board and making sure that she is carrying out the mission of the school system. So.
Well, so maybe a perfect example is tonight when Dr. Couch came to us with a recommendation for what to do with the middle school.
Right.
We were looking for a motion and a second and a vote. Now, it's quite possible it didn't go that way, but Dr. Couch could have requested a motion and the motion doesn't happen.
Right.
So in that case, then Mr. Getz could have said, well, I'll entertain a motion, and Ms. Sullivan could have said, I'd like to motion that we build the new middle school at Wharton. So that's a little bit of the give and go. It's not a guarantee that every recommendation that the administration brings to us that we automatically rubber stamp, but that sort of opens the discussion. So if that fails, then there's an opportunity for it to be more organic and get to, ultimately, it's still the board's decision. Sometimes Dr. Couch initiates it, and sometimes she tries to initiate it and it doesn't go the way she'd like, and the board, but ultimately, we have the say, we're in control.
Well, but there are some things that we may have come across that, because of COMAR or other policies that are in place, that even if we ask them, it just can't be done.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
Right, so everything that, you know, the board, this is what the statute says, subject to the applicable bylaws of the board, the rules and regulations of the state board, which are COMAR, and the education article, and with the advice of the county superintendent, the board determines the educational policies of the school system. So the board determines the educational policies of the school system with the advice of the superintendent and subject to all the laws and rules that are on the books. So I think I think no one's wrong in their assessment. I think we're just describing the same thing in sort of different ways.
6 different ways.
And that's fair. But ultimately, you all are one body, and that's how you all act.
Okay. Okay, the administration is recommending approval of policy CC, Administrative Organizational Plan. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McGee has the second. Do we have any additional comments or questions?
Could you refresh me on what that was? I forgot what we were supposed to be talking about.
The organizational plan?
Oh, that doesn't
The changes in the.
Org chart, yeah, there you go.
Oh, I've seen that, but.
That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
I just kind of lost track.
We have a motion, we have a second. I'd like to go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ms. Messick?
Aye.
The ayes have it, the motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Time to Care Act.
Thank you, President Getz, Dr. Couch, school board members. I'm sure you have heard of the Time to Care Act that is circulating. But tonight I have before you an action item. Beginning in January 1st of 2026, all organizations employing at least one person in a Maryland business must provide workers up to 12 weeks of paid job-protected leave to care for themselves or certain family members who meet specific eligibility requirements. Tonight, I am asking for your approval to join a collaborative that is being organized by the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, known as MABE. And as part of that collaborative, our organization, Kent County Public Schools, will gain opportunities to avoid, to have to pay premium contributions beginning in October of 2024, economies of scale on both administrative and insurance costs of the program, simplicity and ease of administration, and a streamlined process for gaining clarification as questions arise from the Maryland Department of Labor. Due to our size and being an employer that has less than 1,000 employees, we would need to pay a fee of $7,500 each year to join and to continue to participate in this collaborative.
And I think I just would add to that, we have to make a determination about this in terms of joining a collaborative or being a part of the state plan. The problem with being part of the state plan is we don't know the cost of that plan, and we believe that it will be considerably more than banning forces and joining this collaborative. So
And we would have to start to contribute to that
Now,
plan
and
now, without
So-
knowing what the costs are.
There was, of course, the very same conversation at the recent county commissioners meeting, and it was exactly the same thing, that we don't know what that cost would be, and it would be starting ahead of
This. And it's no
deadline.
different than what we're doing and joining for workers' comp and a lot of the other programs that MABE is overseeing, the risk assessments and all of those things. So it makes sense for MABE to be the conduit, if you will, for this collaborative. The interesting thing is that that MABE is reaching out to local governments like Kent County government and all of the other governments around the state. Because if we all join together, it should be considerably less.
Yeah,
So
and
they're not just reaching out to school
No.
districts? Wow.
They've
Okay.
got county governments, and they also, city, and they also have public libraries have been joining. So they're all jumping on board because they're afraid of what the state
Yeah.
number looks like. And to Dr. Couch or Mr. Hutchins' point of view, they're thinking it's going to be higher.
Yeah.
So that's why there's all these folks that are jumping on board.
If it turns out that it is not higher, would we consider jumping to state?
We'll cross that bridge when we get
Okay.
to it, but I'm thinking, I still cannot see where this, is it gonna be the better deal for us?
And there is opt-out language that if we get to that point, we just have to give 30 days notice and all that, but
And just to be covered, this 7,500 fee is pretty minimal.
Yeah.
Per year, so.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, the administration is recommending approval for KCBOE to join the Time to Care Act collaborative through MABE. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Rhodes. Any additional comments or questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Messick?
Aye.
And I will be recusing myself due to my affiliation with MABE over the past year. The motion has it. Yeah, I'm sorry, abstaining. The motion has passed with ayes, so thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. Ms. Gale, do we have any public participation sign-up cards? Okay, the next item on the agenda is our notification of our next meeting. As we discussed earlier, the next meeting of the Board of Education of Kent County will be Monday, November 6th, 2023, beginning at 5:30 PM. Open session will be immediately followed by the board members going into closed session. The open session will resume at 6:30 PM. Both meetings will be located at the administrative building in the boardroom, this room, located at 5608 Boundary Avenue, Rock Hall, Maryland, 21661. The last item on the agenda is to adjourn. The administration is recommending approval to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
Before we do that, I just want to give another reminder that the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting will be on the 16th at 5:30 PM. That's next Monday.
Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Ms. McGee has the motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Rhodes. Anyone want to stay longer?
No.
Hearing no ayes for that, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ms. Messick?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. The